right, we will call this meeting of the Caron-Button City School District to order. Let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, we will move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any comments, questions, or modifications?
I want to make that motion.
Second.
All good?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Alright. We'll move on to delegations, athletic captains.
Thank you, and I will defer to Mr. Henry, who's going to introduce some captains and probably some coaches and maybe some other people too.
So, we wanted to make sure that you guys understand how important it is for athletics for the high school and everything. And so we have people from, athletes from baseball, softball, soccer, boys and girls track. We have our new soccer coach over here. We have our softball coaches, because Heidi is a coach in softball. So, and then we have our track coach. Go ahead, stand up. Yes, thank you. And what we really want to do is make sure you guys understand we have 126 athletes turning out for the spring, and they really wanted to be here so that they can invite you and make sure that their presence can invite you for coming out to matches. This week we actually have 2 home matches. They're both soccer, Tuesday at 6 and Friday at 6. Hopefully next couple of weeks there'll be some home ones. If you need a schedule, we'd be more than happy to provide one for you. It is online. If you go to the KIB website and so forth, and we'd really like to see you guys come on out. I just want to thank all the athletes and coaches and everything for coming out tonight, because it's always great to see them. Okay, you guys have any questions?
It's great to see this many come to the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to have standing room only.
Yeah.
Trying to bring out more seats, so.
Well, the age level went down to around, with all 16, 17, 18s. Yes, sir.
I think it makes you appreciate the young people that are
Mhm.
giving that opportunity, but also enjoying it and that kind of thing. It's great.
Yeah, we have great kids who work hard and want to make sure that they represent our community and our school district and everybody involved. So, once again, they would like to see if you guys have an opportunity to come out, that'd be awesome. Okay?
I think one of the things that, that goes without really being said much is that all the good things you remember about high school are paid for by the levy.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of that. So, just shows the importance of, getting the vote out and making sure that those great memories, you have good teachers, but a lot of the other big memories come from extracurricular, that type of stuff. So glad to see everybody come and represent.
And so the other thing I want to make sure everybody understands is we have great kids. We absolutely have great kids. Athletically, academically, trying to do the best they can every day and try to make sure that everybody knows that they're going to be here and support everything that we do. So I give them a hand and I thank them for everything they do, because it's awesome to be a principal in the high school and work with these kids every day. So once again, thank you all very much.
Thank you guys for all coming out. It's nice to see that almost all the chairs are full, and so you guys can see what goes on when we have these meetings and discuss the future of the school district and the kids and try and support you guys. It's really appreciated. Thank you guys. All right, we will move on to the proposed consent agenda. Any comments? Motion to approve the proposed consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Would you like to let them listen to me, or do you want to keep them here?
If you guys would like to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. If you guys would like to go, you're more than welcome to go now as well. So just giving you guys that option. The delegations is for you guys to come so we can appreciate your guys showing up. But if you guys would like to stay, you're more than welcome to, but you're not required to. So this is your cue if you would like to leave.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for them to speak if they were prepared to do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I can sign it on
All right, well then that would be the next thing on our agenda will be the public comments. If we have anybody that would like to, I will read off our thing here. So the board welcomes input from the community. Please follow the public comment procedure by stating your name at the podium when recognized by the chair. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items not on the agenda. The board will direct the superintendent to follow up on any items that arise during public comment as appropriate. The board will not allow complaints against an individual, staff member, or student in open session unless that individual has requested an open public hearing, meaning no student or employee names can be used. Do you have anybody that would like to?
But I'll let the gentleman go first.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dalton Sherman. I'm here on behalf of track and field. I would like to talk about how many kids we've had this year. We've had a phenomenal amount of kids. We've had 50 something kids. It's like the most we've ever had in track. I feel like track teaches discipline and teaches kids how to work through their problems, and they get mental health. And we also learn work ethic, accountability, and how to work as a team. It helps students participate and get better grades in class because they need to play. And they stay committed. We have a lot of kids that stay committed throughout the whole season, and that's a really big deal. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Connor Marler. I'm a junior here at Cotby High School. I'm here tonight because sports matter to me. They're my life. Over the past year, I had to move schools multiple times, going from Arkansas to Florida back to here. And those times, I dealt with severe depression. And when I got here to Cotby High School, I noticed that I had a home here. Baseball gave me something to hold on to. When I felt everything was uncertain, it gave me structure, a purpose. And for people here in this community, I feel like we need sports. And I know it's not just me that feel this way, right guys? With mental health, it's almost impossible. You got kids committing suicide, you got kids, using drugs, alcohol. And I feel like with sports, it helps all of us get away from those things so we can have a better life ahead of us. I also feel like having sports gives us an opportunity outside of high school for scholarships, and other academic stuff, we want in the future. And I understand that it is difficult for you guys to make this decision, but please don't take this away from us. Thank you.
Anybody else? Dan?
Good evening, Dan Adamson. I just wanted to address the subject of TriTech we brought up in the last meeting. I know it was for down the road, but I'm just a little concerned with that. I think that the district would get an adverse effect from cutting one of those. Well, I don't know where it'll benefit. It might benefit, obviously, transportation is funded separately. It's lesser of. The district's not even capturing the projected cost of what it takes, what they think it should take to transport our kids. So obviously, unfortunately, the state pays on lesser of. So since we're not hitting that threshold, if we cut this year, you will have a savings, but next year you just won't get funded that much more. So essentially, we will lose the funding next year. So then the district's out and the kids are out. So something to keep in mind. Obviously, if we had overage in that department and it was truly costing the district additional dollars, then it would have more of a beneficial effect. So appreciate everything it's doing. I appreciate the district trying to cut funds where they can. It's just something to think about. So thanks. Have a good evening.
Anybody else?
My name's Tawny Chase, and I sat on this board for 4 years myself. Most of these students are not here to necessarily be recognized by the principal. They're here to make sure that you understand that sports, they would like sports to continue. For somebody to say that the parents need to feel the levy not passing on their children when it comes to sports, which is a comment that has been made, that's not an acceptable response. I'm asking the school board to really pull back the books, open it up, look at what can and cannot be cut, because that's why these students are here. That is what they are. They want to make sure that they're able to continue to play sports here. So I ask you guys to do the same. Pull it open, look at it. I've had to bus my 8th grade student to sports this year, and I'm happy to do that if that's what it continues to take. But I just ask that they at least they are able to play. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Savannah Garcia, and I'm also here to speak about sports. For softball, cheer, and every other sport. I know I myself have had freshman year, I had such a difficult time with making friends and just trying new things and just getting out there mostly. I wasn't very positive, I was very negative, but I pushed myself to play softball. In sophomore year I did cheer, but it has positively changed my life forever. I love everybody. Sports have made me a different person, and I've met and made some of the best friends I've ever had that I will forever cherish. I've gotten close to my coaches. I will forever cherish our bond. And I know I'm not just speaking for me, but for everybody. Sports have really made a difference in not just my life, but everybody's. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Thank you, everybody who came up and spoke. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to unfinished business, financial update. John?
Oh, thank you very much. So there hasn't been too much of a change or anything that's been new that's come out since our last board meeting. The audit is ramping up, so they're starting to ask for even more documentation, which is normal and as expected. And then we are going to start kind of ramping up the budget for the 26-27 school year. Obviously there's been a lot of conversations about it, but the state has actually opened up the financial database where we actually start entering all that information. So for me, it helps me conceptualize it, and then also it means that it's time to really start hammering things down and moving forward with it. Like I said, not a whole lot to update this time, but do y'all have any questions for me?
I don't think so. We will move on to policy procedure 6220 bid requirements revision. Pete?
Thank you very much, Sheena. Hopefully the board has had a chance now to take a look at policy 6220. This is the one that we introduced the last time. Teresa, I understand you were able to come in and get your computer and everything. The primary is this has a few new concepts in it, but it's a rewrite with a lot of new words for not a lot of new information, but I didn't feel like it was something that I could nitpick and just ask you to blindly approve. But having had a chance to review it, I would ask if you have any clarifications. The primary impetus for this review was a typo that we found in the procedural area of 6220. So when we looked at the model policy, we found it had changed significantly since the last time it was adopted. So this is simply an update to bid processes. Quite frankly, at this point in time, I don't anticipate having to use policy 6220, as we're not going out for bid on any projects of anything substantial here in the near future. So primarily simply to update the language, and then, of course, we would bring it back before the board if we were ever to need it.
So I had a couple of questions.
Yep.
In one of the sections, it talks about, I think it's small work processes. The district's small work process roster has 6 or small businesses. Do we have a roster of companies we'd source?
We do. We work through, it's a very common small works roster that is common not just to County Benton City, but Columbia, Burbank, Findlay. It's all approved through the ESD, and then we all have the option of working off of the same list.
And then when we're looking for every dollar, and I realize maybe this is used infrequently, the numbers that come out like less than 40 grand, no competitive bidding, between 40 and 75, formal competitive bidding. I just wondered, how are those levels determined? Why wouldn't it be like less than 10K? It just seems like there's, and then there's written bids or, and using kind of the same numbers. It just seems like if we're really serious about holding the line on dollars and making sure we get all of that, that the numbers seem awfully high for where those clarifications would kick in.
Well, not only that, but of course the numbers change depending on the source of the funding.
Sure.
I can't answer the question as to why the discrepancies necessarily, other than these are all directly found in statute, and that's where we adopt them from is simply what legislature has passed.
Because, and that, again, I think that's where legislature loses track of where a lot of small school districts, maybe for Bellevue, 15 grand for purchases don't require quotes. That seems like a, pretty, a couple dollars out of their pocket. But 15 grand not to have a quote in a district our size seems like, there's, and I don't want to nitpick it to death, but it just seems like those arbitrary amounts, when you're searching for dollars, it would behoove us, and maybe this is just a guideline, and we could, if we wanted, if it was $1,000, can we go out and get quotes, or do we have to follow the policy as it's written?
I think the purpose of the policy is to make sure that when you're approaching these numbers, that we're doing more than a simple discussion as a school board, because these bids would be public in nature. Big difference between a publicly requested, an RFP process versus getting a quote. Because I can tell you that as far as an internal process, there are very few things that we go through a purchasing process where we don't receive a quote prior to authorization. In fact, I can say with some assurity that some of those quotes have even come before the board in an informal manner, not necessarily looking for approval, but just to let the board know that these are the types of purchases that we're out there looking at. So I don't think there is ever any doubt that we're going to seek out quotes. I look at John, and if Mona was here, I'd look at her, because we look at John and Mona for approvals on anything over just about $150. With a quote, not being an actual bid though. So,
So it's really guidelines.
yeah.
And they basically align with what the state requirements are for
Correct.
consistency.
Correct.
I have a question. I'd like to just go back to John on item A. Just for kind of a general statement, as far as the financial update, we're looking good now.
We're not looking as bad as you might have feared, put it that way. Like I said, you know, the leadership across the district and Mona have done a great job of trying to make sure we're only buying needs and not wants. And again, that goes back to the quote process that we're talking about. You know, most of the time when we are getting any kind of purchasing request, the quote, everything is already right there in the email with the request. You know, it's not one of those things where somebody's trying to make a purchase and then you get the approval afterwards. So the procurement and AP process is pretty strict. And, you know, like I said, leadership across the district is trying to make sure that we're only going after needs and not wants.
Let's see. So the individual that wants the issue pretty much runs the procurement as far as getting quotes and that type of thing.
Say it again, I'm sorry?
The individual who wants whatever the need is.
Right, right.
They get the quotes and set it up.
They'll get the approvals, and basically say, here's what I'm trying to buy, this is where I'm trying to get it from, and then it goes through that procurement process to get approved, and we can tell them they can get the purchase.
All right.
So for the policy procedure 6220, are we looking for an approval or just
Looking for an approval of the
revision?
revision, correct. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
A second.
So we'll, all in favor of the policy procedure 6220 bid requirements revision?
All right.
Aye. Okay, we will move on to student participation in board meetings discussion. Pete?
Thank you very much. So in your board packet, after our discussion last time, we made the decision we would go ahead and fill out the remaining board meetings for student participation purposes through the delegation process that we have. So you can see a list of groups and students that will be in front of the board for the rest of this school year. Obviously tonight, athletic captains. In April, we'll have future business leaders club from the high school. On the 11th of May, we'll have Europe ambassadors. The 26th of May is the big one that we always look forward to, which is the K through 12 students of the year. When we'll get a representative from each of the grade levels and have them before the board. If I'm remembering the last couple of years right, we packed this place even more so than tonight. So might be a good discussion to have about possibly even having a different site for that particular meeting. And then we'll finish it up in June on the 8th with FFA and reports of what's happened in FFA during the year, as well as many of the summer activities that take place with FFA over the course of the summer. So with that, we still have the need to try and get a few kids in front of the board that are not included in this list. And so for at least a couple of them, because of the special circumstances, we may just put them as a separate agenda item to be able to give them a separate report out beyond the delegations. But we would include those on your board agendas as they come out. So I can work though with individual board members and with principals on some of those kids to make sure that we time it so that we can get those kids in before the end of the school year. So with that, I would say, unless you'd like to see any changes other than what I've talked about, we'll go ahead with this schedule, and then we can make some plans for next year, and potentially we could fill up next year's entire board meeting schedule, I think, before we even get to August.
That'd be a good idea.
That's a great idea. So, anytime you can get and feel the passion in the room, I think, and recognize the achievements that the students are bringing to the district, I think that's a win-win for everybody, so.
So you'll start working on a future list after, basically through June. The end of June you had, I think, till FFA was the last one.
So we've got FFA through the end of June, and then we'll start making preparations, because we'll meet with the principals prior to them going out on vacation, middle of June, and so we can make some plans then to get some things set up for the following year.
I just have one ask or question. I know we had discussed it previously for delegations. I don't know if we have any this year, but foreign exchange students, we added to that list if they would like to be part of that.
Very good call.
Right.
Yeah, I think we could. What we may want to do is work with Mr. Henry and see if we could get those, if we have any students who are available, get them on the same night that we have all the other kids coming on the 26th of May.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be nice.
Okay.
All right, any other discussions? We will move on to Camp Wooten update, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. So over the course of the past month and a half or so, we've made some inroads as far as funding goes for Camp Wooten. I don't think we're in any financial, we have no financial considerations. I believe we've come up with the funding to be able to go forward with Camp Wooten for this year. However, we have an issue that I can't throw money at, and that is the fact that at this point, out of 24 high school students whom we need to recruit for counselors, we have had 6 applications. And that is a pretty fundamental issue. Mr. Henry, I know, has been running, and probably the kids in the room could attest to this. It's been in announcements, it's been in emails home, it's been in a lot of places. We simply are not getting the response that, it's not just that we need, it's that we require in order to make this happen. We cannot send 100+ kids up to a camp and then not have a set of responsible semi-adult students who are able to be assigned to cabins with them. So I'm going to continue to work with Mr. Henry as well as Mr. Davison at the middle school to see if there are things that we have not thought of. We've already, where previous years we've had this only at the junior and senior level, we have included sophomores this past year, and it has been open to sophomores again this year. So I'm hoping that as the time comes closer, that some people will start, oh, wait a minute, I need to sign up for this. But at this point, we're a little iffy.
What are the current dates?
It is June 1st through June 4th. Yes, sir.
Have you heard of any reason why there's maybe not a lack of, I want to sign up right now type of thing?
I think that for a lot of students, one of the things that I've noticed is some of the students who are most likely to volunteer for things like that are some of our most active anyway. And so when you have a significant number who are also going out for track, who are also going out for sports, who are also in band, who are also, and they also keep going, quite frankly, I think it's a case of diminishing returns. I think there's kids who would like to do it, but they are overcommitted themselves. I also would throw out there that I think we would have to ramp up the district's level and the school's level of communication with parents. meaning that we have had some negative blowback from parents online. When there are issues at Camp Wooten, some of the first people to get blamed for said issues, the ones who most of the time have the least to do with it, and that's our camp counselors. Unfortunately, I can't, and nor can the school, control social media. And some of those incidences have gotten particularly ugly on social media. And quite frankly, there's no, short of criminal violation, there's not much that we can do in that respect. So I do think that has a negative impact on it. I know it does, however, I still believe that overcommitment on the part of the majority of kids is the primary reason.
I think also just now realizing it, the sixth graders that miss Camp Wooten are juniors, they don't know what they're missing because they didn't get to participate. So where they
Well,
would
and
have
where does
had
that fall with like graduation schedule, finals, et cetera? Like, is that finals week? Is that graduation week? And those things, like, our seniors are, if that's graduation week, seniors aren't missing that. And many juniors aren't missing that final week with their senior friends. So I can see that could be an issue, that falling that week. I mean, so we have to look at the other things happening too. And when we look at the size of our classes and all those kinds of things, 24 kids, that's a big number for our school.
Yep.
To take that, I mean, that's more than the kids that are sitting in this room, right? So it's significant.
Has the date been moved back over the years? Has it always been that last week of school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I was gonna say, typically are the seniors out though that week?
Seniors have I've always graduated prior to that week.
Right, so typically that's not an issue.
Because I know when I was in school, and then when my daughter graduated in 2012, it was like everybody, you know, we were fighting for spots. You know, you
Exactly.
couldn't-
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wanted to go, so it's just crazy.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think that this is it's not dead in the water. It's just, I think we need to double up on our efforts and get some more information out there to see what's available and what isn't. I'm more than open to reconsideration of the time frame. My understanding has always been that part of the time frame, part of the advantage for having it in that final week is we get more staff participation and are more likely to get staff participation. If it's that week as opposed to, quite frankly, for some at the middle school, they're trying to end their school year as well. So I'd be open to any discussion though that the board would like to take on it. I know when I went to Camp Wooten as a sixth grader, it was April. So there's nothing set in stone other than a solid decade or two of tradition, which is sometimes hard to deal with. But it is something though that we need to know in advance far enough because we pay our down payment for reservations a year in advance. So if we were to decide we wanted to make a move, we would need to do it realistically on the basis of recommendations from the middle school principal, middle school staff as to what works best for them academically, and then make sure that we're in a position to be able to reserve a week that wasn't the last one.
Is there a time frame of when we need to know that we have enough kids to fill the counselor positions?
I think that we have our last time to, we do about a 5-week pre-order for all the food. So I would say before that pre-order is done, so within, I want to say, Heidi, mid-April is the date I believe that Mr. Davison sent for that food pre-order, so on or about the same.
maybe have an update on it by the next meeting.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
All right. We will move on to the trap shooting club update. Pete?
Thank you. So with regards to the trap shooting club, realistically where we're at, we have gotten clearance from our insurance. We've gotten drafts of process and procedures that we need to be following. The major thing that we need at this point, as I've spoken with Mike, is the one thing that we can't do is utilize ASB for the funding. So we need someone or either someone or an organization that qualifies with a 501(c) nonprofit status so that we can funnel the funding through them for financial oversight, which then allows the activities that the club takes part in that the ASB could not legally fund to be able to happen. That's really where we're at right now. Is once we have an identified fiscal agent and then someone who we can identify after that who would then be interested in I don't want to say coaching, because it's not really a coaching position, but advisor, supervisor, someone of that nature, who could then know the logistical aspects, get all of those things set up, and then go forward with the actual fundraising and things like that. Usually it's the process and procedures that are the hardest things to come by, and that is the case in this one. It really is, though, it is not an option for us to utilize ASB. We have to find a 501(c).
We have a, Benton Franklin Pheasants Forever Club has a clay pigeon shooting event this Saturday, so I'll talk with the president and treasurer there. I know it's a 501(c)(3), so then I'm sure out of that group, there's, potential advisor, supervisor, that type of thing too, so I'll report back before the next meeting so we can include it on the agenda.
That would be great. Do you have any other questions on the?
Benton Franklin Pheasant Forever. Thank you.
You said it so many times and I can't remember either. Just Pheasants Forever.
Yeah, one and done.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to new business. State legislative update, Pete?
Thank you. The board has probably seen more paperwork that I forwarded to you all than you will ever want to see. So I'm going to I will not be going over the multiple pages of all of the different education-related legislative actions that happened. I think the biggest things that we need to be aware of, this is something I'm going to work with Mr. Castillo on. There is an ECAP and Head Start licensing and exemption that was passed during this session. Quite frankly, this one came as a bit of a surprise. The intent is to lessen the paperwork requirements for ECAPs and Head Starts that exist on school property, which would be a big deal if we were able to not have to double up on a lot of that same paperwork that we then complete and send to DSHS as well as OSBI. So this could be a pretty good little bill that kind of snuck in. I'm going to ask Mr. Castillo, though, to get some more information through the person at the ESD, Mr. Bona, who is the who's director of all of the ECAP programs in the ESD 123 region. Kind of a bill 5841 that was sponsored by Mr. Binky out of Kennewick. The reason I bring this up is because this looks on paper to be a very effective way for us to get kids to buy into the high school and beyond planning process. And this would mean that financial aid applications as well as opportunity scholarships, which is available to Washington State students, are all going to be funneled through a high school and beyond plan that the state is implementing. The reason I think it's kind of one to watch is simply because typically on things like that, they also come up with new computer programs that they then turn around and require school districts to subscribe to and or adopt. So unforeseen potential financial impact is my primary reason for including that. And then the final item that I wanted to address is simply that while we have seen a number of potential reductions to transition to kindergarten, TTK, this time when it passed, there was a stipulation that the state wants to see priority status given to free and reduced lunch qualifying students. Puts us in a unique position because we're a school-wide free and reduced school. So I wish there was a little bit more detail to this, in that they have not said how OSPI is going to then move forward and make that determination. Originally, it had been a 25% cut across the board, but with the focus and mandate to keep as many free and reduced qualifying students on that roll, it could be that we are given some preferential treatment. I don't expect that, quite frankly, but it is something that's out there. And there are, at this point, with the session only being over since, 11 days ago, we're not 100%. We probably won't know until June what this really means. The one kicker, as far as running start, and because of that impact, also at TriTech, they reduced the amount of shared FTE from a 1.6 full-time student. So if you are a full-time student, you are a 1.0 student. If you are able to go to TriTech or to Running Start, either one, you can go up, used to be up to 1.6, so that you can take a class for 3 hours at Running Start. You could take a couple classes here, and then you could go off to Running Start if you so chose. But they dropped that then from a 1.6 to a 1.2. So we're kind of back to the old model, which means you could go to TriTech and Kaibi High School. You could go to Running Start, and either of those two, a nice match. You just wouldn't be able, there would be no way for you to do all three. I don't think it's going to have a huge overall impact on Grand Bend City High School. I think it'll have a bigger impact on some of our neighbors that have used that to some degree, or a full-time Running Start student, for instance, would not be impacted virtually whatsoever unless they were still choosing to come back and take a couple of elective classes here. But it's something that we'll work with the counseling and administration at the high school to make sure we take into account. All of these cuts were done at the state level in order to try and balance the budget. So everybody is taking a hit, not just schools. However, I think they're picking on some of the schools that have the highest needs, quite frankly.
I will say that when it comes to TriTech, there is an advantage of TriTech is they have a lot of dual credit programs.
Right.
Multiple dual credit programs. So a lot of kids don't do TriTech comprehensive school and Running Start. These are even dual credit.
Agreed. So we'll take those things into account as we start prepping. This is the time to be having those discussions because I know Mr. Henry's knee-deep in trying to get things set up for a master schedule for next year. So, and the same thing is true with council and staff.
No, moving on to 26, 27, potential budget reductions.
Thank you very much. So at this point, I don't have a huge update as far as, our target goal has been and will be that $2 million mark for next year. In conversations with board members and the board as a whole over the past month and a half, I think we have a pretty good idea where the board would like to see things potentially protected and where things might not be. I think the biggest factor, and I think everybody in the room knows it, that when you're looking at 84% of our budget coming from personnel, the personnel will drive the overall reduction of our budget. So with that in mind, we are still anticipating some movement amongst our staff members to outside the district, whether that be in the form of relocation or retirement. I'm not 100% on. But as of right now, we're at about $1.7 million. That number just keeps getting a little bit higher as Mona, as John, as I, the building principals identify things that can be cut. I certainly am aware of the board's preference as far as sports go, for one, as far as bus transportation for TriTech. I know that those are all things that the board would prefer to see remain on the table. So we're making every effort in order to make that happen, as well as looking for some outside revenue and new funding sources. As John alluded to in the financial update, until we get the actual budget tool ready to go and ready for us to start loading some of these numbers into, going on a line-by-line fashion will not be something that we can put before the board. But as soon as we have that tool, I can guarantee that 2 weeks after that happens, at the next board meeting, we'll be able to run down and show you exactly where we're at. My personal thought, and this is taking the hat off for a minute, and my personal thought is if we can come in at around $1.5 million to $1.6 million, and I know I said we're already at $1.7 million, but you have to take into account an increase in costs. Because while the number may be $2 million right now, that actually means $2.5 million next year when you take into account inflation. And quite frankly, a month ago at this time, we were paying $1.50 less per gallon for diesel. And I'm not being subtle on that one. So costs are rising exponentially at this very moment. But like I said, I think that there also has to be a recognition that you don't can't eat an elephant once, all one bite at a time. So we're not going to try and dig out of a big hole all at one time if it comes right down to it. There has to be some common sense along the way. But once that tool is available through the state budget office, John and Mona will sit down and we'll start entering budget projections as well as student enrollment projections. Our biggest concern, my biggest concern right now, is where it has been for the past couple of years, and that's at our incoming kindergarten classes. Our kindergarten, and it's not just us, this is region-wide, statewide, kindergarten enrollment has been down across the state the past 2 years, we could really use a larger number of 5-year-olds coming into the system for next year. Last year we were able to project out around 1,270 full-time students. I think this year projecting at 1,250 will be at about the limit as high as we're willing to go, and probably not even that high, depending on what our initial response is for kindergarten. So a lot of moving pieces, but there should be a lot more clarity, I would say, around that April 27th meeting that we have, because hopefully we're going to be able to give you a first shot at the actual financial look at the budget.
Any questions? Dan, I think you had something rolling around. So basically, when we actually have the tool, we'll have a little bit more information to have further
Correct.
discussions.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you for that update, Pete. We're going to move on to board comments.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank all of the students who came tonight, because I think it's great, it shows interest in that. But more importantly, somewhere down the road, you'll be where you sit in this seat, and you have young students, and you get a better idea of what a school does. This is the same school board approach as done in Prosser, Grandview, Sunnyside, and that's just the way that they're set up. So anyway, thank you for coming. I think that's really something special, and it's just good to see that, because you'll pick that up as that's how the school boards operate. That's how schools operate, and they maintain by doing it this way. The hope is that we maintain contact with the public that we serve. So thank you again.
Yeah, I'd agree with Dan. It was at the welcome freshman orientation a couple weeks ago, or a week or so ago, and a group of students wanted to talk to me. And one of the things I tell them is you don't have to wait for a delegation to come. So if you feel strongly, advocate for yourselves. Come to the board meetings. Come talk about the questions, the concerns, the things that you have that you feel strongly about. And we need to hear that, because we sit here, we're in the community, just like Dan says, but what's important to me doesn't necessarily mean as much as what is important to you, because I don't have kids in the district. So, I need to hear, or we need to hear, we hear from Mr. Henry, we hear from, the staff, those types of things. But, if you feel strongly, advocate, come talk. Let's hear what's on your mind. And, y'all did great tonight. I mean, we'd like to, every other Monday, it'd be great if the room was packed and there was this much passion every time. So, thank you.
For sure, I agree with that. I work with students every day, and I encourage those students to advocate for themselves on a regular basis. I encourage the staff to do the same, along with parents and other community members. But it's you, it's the kids. We work for all of you and your families and your futures, and we want to hear what's important to you. You're in the buildings every single day with your staff members, your teachers, your principals, your admin, your secretaries, all of your nutrition services staff, all those things, and we really want to hear from you. And not just those of you who are here, but the people that you go to school with every day. If you hear, if you're at school and there's somebody that has something important to say, bring them here, because we want to hear that. Or email us. You can get a hold of us that way too. You can send in a public comment. You don't even have to come speak if you don't want to be embarrassed, if you're too embarrassed or scared to speak, to us in person. You can send in a public comment too. There's ways to do that. You can help. I can help you with that. But we want to hear all the things that are going on in every school at every level. So it's not just high school students, we also want to hear from our middle school students, and our older elementary kids and see what they're doing and all the good things. So I applaud you for being here, it's awesome.
That's it. All right, we're gonna move on to the superintendent's report.
In just real brief, I want to thank, first off, Maintenance Department at the City of Benton City, Benton County Fire Department, and the Benton County Sheriff's Office for their very quick response to our small fire that we had today down at the softball shed by the track. Commend the students at the high school. Everybody stayed calm, did what they were supposed to. The shed catching on fire was a total accident. Did not result in any significant injuries. We did have one of our custodians / maintenance folks who got checked out both by the paramedics and as well as Catholic. He's going to be okay. So we got lucky. Not, quite frankly, not as much damage as you would have thought from the amount of smoke there was. When I first saw it, I was very concerned that not only that was going up a potentially a field house as well. So again, kudos to first responders because they came out and took care of the issue, and to our softball players and our softball coaches, they did a great job of then turning it around and getting some of the necessary equipment so we could have a successful practice tonight. I attended the Small Schools Conference last week in Wenatchee. That's a statewide gathering of other schools about our size or smaller, quite a number of which were smaller. Overall, I think the recurring theme is one that we've already touched on tonight. The fiscal situation in Olympia is having an outsized effect on smaller districts, quite frankly. And we're trying to come up with ways and means to get that done. Senator Dozier made an appearance at the Rural Education Center and spoke to the efforts that took place with Prescott School District and able to, at least knock on wood, for now anyway, keeping them out of dissolution, which was not what was on the table last year at the same time. So they came a long way in a year, rather amazing. So it was very nice to hear from Senator Dozier. And then moving forward, just working with the rest of the small districts in the area in our region to continue work, getting the word out about the advantages of being in a small school compared to some of our larger neighbors. That's all I have, Gina.
Thank you, Pete. Quick question on the softball field shed. Was there a lot of equipment loss, or like is for the most part everything can continue on with no significant impact, or?
I would say that the coaches went out, they did a quick inventory of all the materials that were there. When you look at the equipment, I think it creates kind of a false sense of security because anyone who's experienced a fire knows that, bless you, anyone that's experienced a fire knows that the smoke damage alone, while something may look okay, the smoke damage can make it unusable. So we're still in the process of going through some of that. We had a pitching machine, unfortunately, that took the brunt of the flames. So we're going to be needing a couple of larger pieces of equipment. Our maintenance staff was able to get our four-wheeler out of the shed before the flames got too bad. So we were able to save some things. But I think for our initial, we have enough material to be able to practice with game tomorrow, and then we'll work with our insurance company, Clear Risk out of Ephrata, They had a claims adjuster on the phone with me within an hour of sending the email. So I'm very happy with their response. By the end of the week, we should know exactly what we need and exactly what we can then turn around and send to insurance for coverage and be working through. I'm sure we're gonna have to have a contractor come in because of the smoke damage to the facility itself. Looking at it from the outside doesn't do it much justice. You need to go in and see that we're not going to store anything in there that you don't want to smell like week-old s'mores left too close to a campfire. So we'll get that done, but we should be able to get you more information about the specifics, but for right now, we're okay.
Good. Any other questions? All right, we will move on to executive session pursuant to RCW 42-3110, section 1G, performance of a public employee, 30 minutes with no business to follow. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.